So I've been playing Halls of Torment. This is a Vampire Survivors-like, or the new term that's being thrown around, which is a bullet heaven. I really like that term, by the way. Now, I am a really big player of these sorts of games. I have played a ton of them. I have played all of the popular ones and all of the not so popular ones. And I have, I think, over 220, 230 hours or so on Vampire Survivors. I love the genre. It's a great way to just zone out for a little bit, clear my mind, enjoy something arcadey and fun. And I know that a lot of people feel the same way. Unfortunately, I have been feeling like nothing really comes close to what Vampire Survivors offers. That is until I played Halls of Torment. So the game isn't done, and I think that it's got really, really good bones of what it could become later on. But even in its current early access state, I think it's the best of these that we've had since Vampire Survivors. And that comes down to multiple reasons. First of all, it innovates enough within that space to differentiate itself from other games in a way that I think is just right. So there's a lot of familiarities with Vampire Survivors. The way that you actually construct your build and the way it's all really done is not that similar, but feels very familiar through it. So there's a lot of emphasis placed on your character here versus Vampire Survivors, where you kind of just have a character might have an additional passive or some changed stats, but really any character can end up going with any build. Here, the main weapon that each character has is unique to that character, and you really have to try and build around them. Additionally, each character excels at different attributes, so trying to pump those attributes on level ups will not be as efficient on different characters, forcing you that if you want to play to the strengths of that character and build optimally, you have to build them around their strengths and not try to compensate for their weaknesses, which I think is a really smart decision. Now, a lot of the things that those characters bring are translated into the special weapon that you unlock, and you can have up to 6 special weapons at a time, and those can be upgraded through your level ups, and if you upgrade them enough, you can then kind of evolve them. You don't really evolve them, you just get another extra side to that. They are not as game breaking or build defining as they might be in other bullet heavens. They're kind of part of your arsenal, and you really need to be aware of how you're building your character and keeping a balanced build. And on top of that, this game, I feel, is a lot more active. So in Vampire Survivors or other games like it, I have reached the point where, you know, you're just one-handing the keyboard, you're just going around basically untouchable, you know how to build, you've metagamed enough that you can reliably clear the map 100% of the time. Now, this game has an auto-aim feature, but I really don't think that's the best way to play. You have to play it like a dual-stick shooter, or with your mouse. I play it with a mouse, to aim your main ability and kite enemies a lot more actively. So I think that's a really good change. It doesn't have a dodge mechanic like others, like maybe Soulstone Survivors, but I don't think it needs it. You kind of have to build around movement speed as well, and that's one of the great deficits of some of the characters. The game itself looks phenomenal. It goes for this Diablo 2 art style that you've been watching behind me, and I love the way it looks. I love the animations and the feedback on a lot of the abilities. They just feel crunchy. I've always kind of complained mentally that Vampire Survivors, for as charming as it is, doesn't have animations, which is something that they've put into some weapons in the latest DLC. I'm really happy to see that this comes out of the gate with those sorts of things. But just playing the game feels really good, and it has that addictive nature to the progression where you just want to keep playing, to unlock the next character, to see how differently you're going to build them, and to unlock all of the things that they bring either to the metagame, the new unlockables that you can then upgrade, or the new weapons that will come with them, and then you have to use those weapons to unlock their evolutions. The way it flows is really, really gripping, basically from the first moment. And on top of that, it has a different metagame system, which is your loot. So you unlock loot pieces, but then you can get them as loot drops during your runs, but you can take that loot and throw it up a well and unlock it by paying for it to always have with you, to just take on your next run. And you can have a whole arsenal of different items that you will then be able to take on your subsequent runs and build for each specific character, for their traits, an optimal loot loadout that you just start with, and that's where a lot of the metagame progression comes from. But by being in a loot system, it also feels very creative. It feels rewarding, and it adds a different layer of strategy when you're panicking to, you know, you're on a lost run, but there's a really cool piece of loot that you obtained and you want to retrieve it, and you're just running and mad dash trying to get it out. And additionally, that now your metagame is limited to the inventory spaces that your character has. So you want to build that loadout for specific characters to take with you for that character on your next run. All in all, I can't say anything better than this is the best one I've played since Vampire Survivors, and it gets me giddy all over again, like that experience I had originally with Vampire Survivors. I would love to see this have even more items and more progression and more characters, and to just keep growing. I would like more obscure unlockables and cute Easter eggs in the way that Vampire Survivors has. But in general, I would just like to see the game continue to grow through early access and just have more, because it's stupendous. If you loved Vampire Survivors, you should definitely start playing Halls of Torment. And if you've never played Vampire Survivors or any game of that type, this is a great one to start. I think it's a little bit more difficult through the nature of it being more active, and just maybe a little bit more difficult and grindy in general. But that could be me misremembering, since I've played so many of the other ones that it is a skill you acquire. Maybe I did struggle at the beginning of playing Vampire Survivors, similarly to how I struggle more in this game than in others of its ilk, but I think it's a little bit more difficult. Please, please, please check this game out. It's just so much fun. I had been kind of burnt out on the genre. I played a lot of them. I ran into this one. Thank you to the devs for sending me a key when I asked for it. I'm so glad that I didn't miss out on, because it is phenomenal, and I hope that every person that likes this sort of game checks this out and is equally as excited as I am to where it could go. So I hope this quick review has helped you out on your purchasing decision. The game is $5, I think, or your regional equivalent. It's the price of a coffee. Let's be honest, much like Vampire Survivors and other games in this genre, although they have gone up in price, this is one of the cheaper ones, and it's definitely one of the best ones, or probably the best that's come out since then. Remember that if you want more, you can go ahead and click subscribe, and that way you can watch more. It's really that simple, and it's completely free. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.